And welcome back to the channel, friends and fellow citizens. And as always, thank you for the visit. Mac here with the third video of In the previous video, we learned that law is a language all its own, and certain rules must be understood before attempting to interpret the text of any given law. We briefly discussed the subject of general and specific words. We also discovered how context can alter the general and specific nature of a word. And, of course, I presented the closing question. As there have been no questions or comments posted in either of the previous videos or on my website, I will address yet another question presented by a local friend. I was asked why some of the documents mentioned in the previous video were my favorite and what makes them important. Well, the first part of my response was, do you remember ever hearing about or reading any of those documents back when you were in school? The answer was no. I asked if she had ever heard of them before. Once again, no. I left off with, why do you think that is? No answer. I told her they were no more or less important than any of the other documents on my website. I chose those documents because they are a part of the record left behind by the founders of this nation. These documents are not taught in our schools, nor are our children inspired to read them and get their information straight from the horse's mouth, as it were. These documents are important because they are not a part of the curriculum in our school systems, and I am convinced that they are left out for a reason. Now for the closing question from the previous video. Should you encounter general or unclear words while reading any given law or statute, there are certain rules which are designed to help you clarify those words and interpret the law properly. Can you tell me what these rules are called? These rules are known as the rules of statutory construction. The word statutory meaning of, about, or relating to the law. The word construction meaning interpretation, not the process of building something. It's derived from the word construe. This definition being understood, we now know that these are the rules of statutory interpretation, or more simply, the rules for the interpretation of written laws. The majority of these rules deal with general and specific words, which we have already covered. A good way to think of these rules is by comparing them to a prop used in the movie titled National Treasure. Known as Franklin spectacles, these glasses were allegedly used to read hidden messages written in ink, which could only be seen through certain colored lenses. Knowing the difference between general and specific words and the use of these rules works in much the same manner as the Franklin spectacles. These rules are the colored lenses which help you find the hidden meaning of vague or unclear words or phrases. When a law expresses a general word, one of the following rules are applied in order to determine the actual meaning of that word. The names of most of these rules are in Latin. Some are in English. While I will never discourage learning Latin or any other language, it's not necessary. What is necessary is to understand how these rules work. Any person who intends to make or interpret laws should never be elected or appointed to such a position until they can publicly demonstrate an intimate knowledge of these rules. Let's begin with the Four Corners Doctrine. This is a strict rule which applies primarily to contracts. This rule requires courts to resolve contractual disputes based solely on the words expressed in the disputed contract. The meaning of a document should derive solely from the text within the document itself. Extrinsic evidence is not permitted. It is as simple as it sounds. The contract says what the contract says and nothing else. Now for some of the more complex rules. Noscitur associus, Latin meaning it is known by its associates. Under this doctrine, the meaning of unclear words should be identified by reference to other words in the context of which they appear. This rule is applied when two or more words within a legal text are susceptible to similar or related meanings because they are used together. It advises that these words should be interpreted in the context of their association with one another. A fit example of the use of nocetur associus would be when a commercial fisherman who, during a federal search, ordered his crew to toss undersized fish overboard was charged with violating a statute proclaiming that he knowingly alters, destroys, mutilates, conceals, covers up, falsifies, or makes falsified entry in any record, document, or tangible object with the intent to impede, instruct, or influence a federal investigation after having been found with the other sized fish aboard the vessel. The fisherman argued, and surprisingly, the court agreed that this statute did not apply to the hiding of fish. First and most obvious, a person can't make a false entry on a fish. The court applied the interpretive rule in nocetur associus and determined that the phrase tangible object, when compared with the associated words or phrases such as makes a false entry on any record and document, was meant to be restricted to such things as may contain records, such as papers, computers, hard drives, thumb drives, CDs, DVDs, and the like. The meaning of any questionable word, term, or phrase shall be determined by identifying it with the words, terms, or phrases with which it is associated. It's that simple. Moving on. Ejusdem generis, Latin meaning of the same kind. Under this rule, when general words or phrases follow a number of specific rules or phrases, the general words are specifically construed as limited and apply only to the persons or things of the same kind or class as those expressly mentioned. Let's say that a small portion of a law reads as follows: any person who tortures, willfully inflicts inhumane injury or pain not connected with bona fide scientific or medical experimentation, or cruelly and unnecessarily beats, maims, or mutilates. Notice the word beats is colored red. The reason is that this particular word is very specific. All of the other acts are not specific because they are general or vague words or phrases. In a court of law, if there is some question regarding what the general words and phrases actually mean, it is necessary to limit those general words by using any specific words listed with them. In this example, the general words or phrases may be inflicted many different ways. However, the specific word can only be inflicted through the use of physical contact. Thus, the general words and phrases are to be interpreted likewise. Let's move on to in pari materia, Latin meaning on the same subject. Somewhat strict, this doctrine requires that statutes regarding the same subject must be interpreted in the same manner. For example, if the law from the previous example is located in the agriculture section of the state code, but a similar law is located in the property crimes section of the state code, the interpretation of the agriculture law is restricted to similar laws within the agriculture section and not as an extension of the laws located in the property crimes section. Moving on. Expressio unius est exclusio ulterius. Latin meaning the expression of one thing is the exclusion of another, or a specification of particulars is an exclusion of generals. An exceptionally strict mode of interpretation which prohibits any speculative interpretation when a law expresses particular things through the use of specific words or phrases. When the words of a law are specific and clear, there is no need for speculation or interpretation. One example of the appropriate use of this rule appears in the preamble to our Constitution. In the opening phrase, "We the people of the United States," the phrase "of the United States" necessarily excludes the people of any other nation. Another example would be the rule expressing weekends and public holidays, which excludes ordinary weekdays. Yet another rule, the rule of lenity, Latin or Old French meaning gentleness or kindness. Under this rule, courts are required to interpret any ambiguity or vagueness in a criminal statute strictly in favor of the defendant. Last one, I swear. Generalia specialibus non derogant. Latin means things general do not derogate from things special. Under this rule, it is necessary for a court to presume that when there is a conflict between a general and a specific word, term, or phrase, the specific provision shall prevail, especially when a sentence is so well formed that no other rule of construction can logically be applied. A perfect example would be that if there is a general rule which says no pets allowed in the building, but a specific rule states service animals are allowed, the specific rule takes priority and allows the admittance of service animals into the building. These are just a few examples of the rules of statutory construction. It would take a long time to produce videos covering nothing but these rules. My intention isn't to spoon feed my viewers everything regarding the law. I want to spark your curiosity and cause you to investigate and study all of these topics further. I know that this video is getting a little long, so let's wrap things up. As I stated, this video is not and was not intended to be an all-encompassing tutorial on the rules of statutory construction. It does, however, include the particular rule of statutory construction intended to be employed when reading and interpreting our Constitution. Let's bring this video to a close with the following question. Do you know which rule of statutory construction is meant to be employed when interpreting our Constitution? Drop your answers in the comments section below. That about wraps it up for this episode. As always, please take the time to like, subscribe, enable notifications for future videos, and share them with your friends with the appropriate buttons below, especially first-time viewers. Then watch these videos from the beginning. Don't forget to visit understandingourconstitution.cloud and download the transcribed documents used in support of these videos. They're free unless you want to make a donation. Once again, friends and fellow citizens, thank you for the visit. I look forward to your return to